Hi, Queen Mo, you're muted. We didn't hear your introduction.
This is the most embarrassing moment. Why do I always have these moments? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh my God. Phew. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize. Hello, everybody. This is African Queen Mo Show Cardiff, based in beautiful, coming to you from the beautiful city of Nairobi. It is actually after midnight. We started a little bit later. Apologies for not hearing us. Hi, Louis. I can see you're there. You're telling me that I'm muted. Oh my God. I'm sorry, Louis. Hope you're doing well. It is a Friday, TGIF. But is it TGIF because I'm seeing that the fires are raging and raging on in California? And I heard that there are some fires as well in Texas. Is that true? Louis, what's really happening in the US is kind of scary. So we have Susan on the show with us here. And yeah, thank you, Susan, for letting me know that I'm muted all this time. I don't know why it happens like that. It's very unfair. I'll be honest with you guys. This has been not a very good week. Although I'll tell you why it's not been a good week, because my mom is not well, and we have been having issues with the hospitals. You know, we talked about the insurance issues to do with insurance, and not really. This is not really about insurance. This is about understanding how people work. You know, work ethic in the hospitals, understanding, you know, when you're sick, when your person is not well, what they're diagnosed with and how to manage it. And the fact that so many medical professionals don't seem to be as committed to ensuring that their patients are kept as comfortable as possible. Like, for example, that they manage pain. I was talking to my brother, who's a doctor, who said that actually um, pain pain management is actually a whole subject in itself. And I wonder to myself, why don't they teach every doctor about pain management? Why is pain management not something that is taught to everybody? And just like, for example, nutrition, especially as health professionals. So there you are, you see a person in pain, and then you don't even know how to handle it. Anyway, that's besides the subject. Today we are talking relationships. Yep, it is a Friday. And so, you know, on Fridays, we do the drill. We do as much as possible. We're continuing on from, this is part two of global challenges. And one of the challenges that we're having right now is relationships between men and women. This is not about passport bros. This is just about general relationships. Susan, Karibu, what do you think about this? Why are you laughing? Oh my
Um,
God.
um, I'm laughing when you said it's not about passport bros. Yeah, indeed, we're not talking about passport bros today. We're really going to talk about relationships. It's a Friday, and I'm sure that that is something on many people's mind right now. And um, we are not experts, and we're asking you all to join in the comments section, or even join us in this platform, just to
Mm-hmm,
discuss this. Yeah,
mm-hmm,
so um, when we come to relationships, some interesting changes in Kenya. The president has appointed a technical working group on GBV. We've been in our past sessions, we've been talking about femicide in our nation, and gender-based violence, sexual and gender-based violence. And because of the upsurge of the numbers, the president has decided to establish a technical working group with 13 members, and they're supposed to report within 3 months. And their job really is to assess, review, and recommend measures to strengthen the institutional, legal, and policy response to gender-based violence and femicide. As we were saying, those were some of the weaknesses that have been pointed out as to why this is not being curbed or curtailed. It's the management of it, both at the institutional and the legal level, and the policy level. Um, yeah, so when we're talking about the reason why I brought in the issue of gender-based violence is we know that relationships can really turn sour. And one of the things that we see when the relationships turn sour is gender-based violence. But we're looking at what, like, this is a Friday. What do people normally do on Fridays? do, some people wanting to interact. Discussed in previous shows, about how to keep safe, how people should keep safe, the warning signs and the red flags. Um, and it's true, loneliness is a big thing. People are looking for friendship through different platforms. We've talked about that in previous shows, the different spaces in which people are trying to find people to interact. And even the one issue we talked about was that, and I think it was raised by one of our viewers, was that you can be in a crowd of people and still feel lonely. And I'm not sure who it was who made that comment. And he said, he went somewhere and he was surrounded by all these people, but he still felt really lonely. And what is the panacea? What is the way to deal with that? So
Susan,
loneliness is real.
Susan, that was Louis.
That that
That
was
was Louis.
Louis. Yeah,
He went
yeah,
out, and then there was a bunch of ladies over there, and he was like feeling
yeah,
lonely, you know? And I
it,
was telling him
yeah.
that probably those women were also lonely too, feeling
It's true.
alone. Yeah, feeling alone in a crowd. It's a horrible feeling, really. Hmm.
And I think people are fearing and communicating with one another seems to be an issue. Um, People are not able to speak as freely with one another. I think our societies all over the world have changed so much that people don't feel free just to engage in conversations freely. Um, so that's one of the issues where you find you're in a space where there are very many people around you, but you still feel isolated at the same time. I remember listening to one video, and especially about people who have moved from their home countries to work in other countries like the US and other countries. And they say there's great loneliness because you can go a whole, week without talking to anybody. That human interaction. You can see people, but you don't interact with them. And really, what is the cause of that? What has made us so insular? What has made us so fearful of wanting to engage in conversations or getting even to know who your neighbor is? Here in Kenya, we have something called Nyumba Kumi, where we're supposed to, Nyumba Kumi means 10 houses. So it's a security measure of a group of 10 houses. So if there's a security issue, you can sort of reinforce one another. You alert the police, call the police, come in to assist or whatever it is. And that is supposed to create a stronger sense of like society, because we are our brother's keeper. But it depends on where you are really, because where you're living. If you're living in the upmarket areas, it not doesn't work quite the same way as it would maybe in high density um, areas, where they're more like the sense of community is stronger there than it is in the more isolated upmarket leafy suburbs of the country. So loneliness is something very real, and I think it can cause you to suffer from other mental health issues like depression, um, even low self-esteem, and other things. And you'd actually need to go for counseling if it gets really severe. In fact, the video I was watching uh, from this lady who lives in America, and she was saying that you know she had to go for counseling to help her to deal with some of that feeling of isolation. Yeah, I don't know what you think, Finmo.
Yeah, isolation is something that seems to be promoted by the lifestyle that we have chosen to have, where we are all behind closed doors, behind fences, in our cars, separated, from other people. Even if you go to a restaurant, you don't know anybody there. Our lifestyle in terms of our jobs, we are in different places, different spaces. So it's difficult to actually have and form lasting relationships. That's the problem. And also time. We have just basically Our time has been robbed from us. Somebody else is in charge of our clocks. So it's difficult to feel even married people feel isolated. So just imagine a mother who has had a child and she has to stay home. She feels very isolated with that baby. And she's a married woman. Her husband has to go to work. He's now on a different, they both have jobs. One of them is looking after the baby at home, the other one has gone to work. Or even if, for example, you don't even have a baby, maybe you're a couple and you're in a house and each of you have different shifts, or you're working different jobs, or you have to travel a lot. Or maybe,
Yeah.
you get to the point where maybe, yeah, you have to travel a lot. One person maybe has more responsibility at work. Another person is doing business. They're working very early in the morning and coming home late at night. And the other person has a 9 to 5, for example. Yeah. So people feel isolated in all situations, which is very sad. So loneliness is something that we just have to live with. I think it's different from aloneness. There's that thing
Yeah.
of, okay, this is my time, because there's an element of choice. I've said this is my time, this is my alone time, and I need it. But then there's that loneliness where there's a yearning to be with someone else, and maybe you can't be with someone else. You can't spend time with another person. So I see a lot of people trying to address their loneliness feeling by either, joining groups in church, going out to bars and restaurants, or joining groups, that have like hobbies, maybe going hiking together, going to the forest together, or doing picnics together, or doing even trips together. You hear about women going out together and things like that, like women's only tourism things. But you see, these are kind of what I call band-aid approaches. This is not a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle issue that we have. We have a lifestyle issue because everybody, I think, has an element of loneliness at some point. Yeah, you feel lonely, most of us, even me who is married.
When
Yeah,
we
right now
meet
my husband is
another
very
human
far.
being.
You're in a long distance relationship, you feel
Mhm.
lonely. You feel that loneliness, you feel that emptiness. It's not the same as alone time. Yeah. Let
Yeah,
me
there's
see.
a
Louis has
difference
a lot to.
between the two.
Yeah, there's a different time. Just a minute. Louis has
Yeah.
1 million things he's been saying, and I haven't said a thing. Hi, Louis. Thank you very much for your comments. And he was telling me he doesn't know anything about the California wildfires, and I told him, I asked him about, yeah, I asked him about the Encore electrical substation fire. You know what happened? Because you know how I know Louis, because I follow a lot of TikTok, and some people were saying, "Oh, this is all coordinated. There's so many events. What's happening? Are we under attack?" Do you think that you're under attack in America? Do you feel that way?
There was,
Yeah. And
there was
and
a
then he's
guy
saying,
from Los Angeles
mhm.
who was found with a blowtorch. I saw it in the news. A blowtorch. Some, yeah, Los Angeles. There are a lot
Yeah,
of like actors whose homes have been burnt down. Hanks, I saw Hanks, Witherspoon, somebody else. A number of them. Their homes have been
even
burnt
Meghan
down, and they
Markle's
said,
home is at risk. The last time I saw Meghan Markle and Harry, their home is at
yeah,
risk. Yes, I've seen a lot of celebrities whose homes who have lost their homes. Another man was crying because he lost his house, which is like a museum of rabbits, rabbit stuffed rabbits or something like. They're not real rabbits, just rabbits anyway. He's been working on
okay,
it for 40 years with his wife. Collection of
a
rabbits.
taxidermist. He's a
I don't even know what
taxidermist.
this. Oh,
Yeah,
you
that's
know
what the
about that
people
guy?
who.
Oh, you saw that? Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't know him, but I'm saying his art, his stuffing
Oh, he's an
of
artist.
the.
Oh, taxidermist.
Yeah, it's
Taxidermist.
called
Ah, you're
taxidermy.
learning new
Yeah,
words.
yeah,
Well, his
yeah. It's
taxidermy business is over, man. 40 years of it. Another
oh
lady,
dear.
they had traveled and gone to Southern America. She and her partner, they had traveled South America, and they were setting up a new home when they found out that their home in Los Angeles went up in smoke. And she said the problem is actually not so much the house itself, but the memorabilia, all her awards. These are people who have been in Hollywood. Hollywood has officially, also been affected.
Yeah,
And, these are people who have won awards over years. And, these are their memorabilia, their trophies, their stuff, and it's all gone. Yeah. And it's really sad to see people struggling and crying. And it's horrible to watch that. It's horrible. It's really sad to watch. I can just imagine how I'd feel if I lost everything. And that's also going to contribute to isolation, because a lot of people are not going to, a lot of people are going to be homeless now. Just already we have a homelessness
Yeah,
crisis in the US, although they say that you shouldn't use the word homeless. Like in the UK, they call it sleeping rough. Sleeping rough, my foot, you know? So Louis had a few
yeah,
things to say. He's saying, what is he saying, Louis? Louis was talking about the fact that when I was talking about the fact that I think that doctors are not trained enough on things that matter, like pain, nutrition, pain management, nutrition. Um,
yeah,
he said that he was reading a book where a medical doctor mentioned that he only took a seminar on nutrition to satisfy the prerequisite. That is regarding to the pain and doctor subject, which is true. Because, for example, I'll give an example of my own mom. My mom was admitted in hospital, and she was on many, many strong medications, including sedatives. But guess what? They weren't checking to see that she's eating. So there she is, they're dumping her with a whole bunch of medication to the point where now she's even in more pain than she was before. Yeah. So if you have a stomach ailment and they're doing is just pumping medication in you, and you don't have your person to look after you. So what I was advised is that you should actually pay for a bed for someone else to come and look after your loved one. Make sure that they're eating and drinking, even if the food is brought there. What happens is that they take it away. If the patient doesn't eat it, they'll take it away. So now you have to think
yeah,
about two beds, two people in rotation, 24 hours. Yeah. And Louis was
yeah,
also saying, yeah, and it's true when it comes to nutrition, nutrition is a very important component of healing. In fact, if not the most
yeah.
important. Yeah.
Mhm.
So many doctors have actually taken an interest and they're teaching themselves, but many of them still don't take the way that the hospitals are organized is that there's a nutrition department and then there's the doctor's department. Somehow they need to be merged. Somehow the doctors should be paying
Yeah,
attention to the food, and the food people should be paying attention to what medications these people are eating, and what that
yeah,
means in terms of the menus and diets. Louis, he's saying it's 42%, sorry, 42 degrees Fahrenheit in Houston. He wasn't familiar. Yes. Okay. So it's actually hot. So what else does he say? He saw a documentary where housewives feel depressed and get therapy, and other housewives get together in a big gym and do activities together. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, they always tell you, to go and see a therapist, go and see a licensed therapist for your ailment. What would they say
yeah,
to our great grandmothers who never even had those licensed therapists? As much as I believe in them, the fact is that there's an element of you need to pay to get well. You need to pay
yeah.
to get therapy, therapy, but it's not really true.
Mhm.
You can get it for free. There are people who are natural therapists, and even animals can give you therapy of some sorts. And he also talked about there was an interview, they interviewed a husband from one of the depressed housewives, and the husband mentioned the stress of work and not being at home.
Mhm.
So it affects men too, it affects husbands too. And he also
Yeah,
said they
yeah.
interviewed teenagers that are in high school and say that they shoplift things at the mall, even though they can buy it. The teenagers said that
Yeah.
it's more fun shoplifting and, of course, the drugs. That reminds me of something else that I saw on TikTok today, Louis, is about there's this new trend called dads on duty. There was a case of 23 high schoolers who were in
Uh,
trouble. You saw that. There were 23 high
no,
schoolers who were in trouble for doing what? For fighting. So 30 dads, I think it was 30 or 60 dads, decided to rotate and take turns in the school. So they're on duty at the
mhm.
school. And since they took on duty at the school, no more fights happening. These are young people like those shoplifters who are just looking for attention. So when we talk about relationships, it's not just about romantic relationships, it's also relationships between children and their parents, the young people and the
Yeah.
society, being seen, being heard, feeling like you're part of the society. Yeah, that's a very important aspect of things. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. When you
Yeah.
talk about it in the context of school, the bullying and why the dads had to
Mm-hmm.
actually come into the school to stop the fights. Actually, they were dealing with bullying, and
Uh-huh.
we know that bullying has been a cause of like mass shooting, or one of the reasons that is given for mass shootings in schools. The students shooting, they're shooting one another. And the latest one of this young lady, who I think she 13 years old, who went and shot some of her classmates and their teacher or something like that.
Wow.
In the US, it was a
Yeah.
girl. Yeah,
Horrible.
a girl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you wonder to what extent, what is the connection there? Okay, there was bullying. There was a claim of bullying. There was access to guns. There's also the issue that maybe her parents were not as present as they should have been, and perhaps that example of dads on duty is an example of when the parents are more present. At least one parent is more present.
Mm-hmm.
Is likely to curb some of the excesses of behavior of children. And I'm wondering to what extent, if for those cases where there have been children who've engaged in mass shooting, I mean, from
Mm-hmm.
Columbine and all those other stories,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from some time back, whether, whether there's any, I think they all suffered from some degree of loneliness, each of those children. The feeling of isolation in the school, the feeling of isolation at home. It's definitely some mental health issues there. And, the loneliness that sort of triggered this perhaps unhealthy thinking or processing of how to deal with bullying. Because not all people would think that because I'm being bullied in school, I should go and shoot you know people. So I don't know whether the loneliness is one of those underlying factors that you find among people who would engage in such such heinous crimes. And so sad is, and many of them, not only do they shoot others, they try to shoot themselves as well, try to unalive themselves. So they unalive others, and so it's like a murder suicide sort of event. um yeah, so it's true we can be lonely, and one of the things I think we're also supposed to talk about is the tensions within the family, especially during this Christmas season, this whole season of December. Is it November, December, January? That season, the family tensions, and there's definitely loneliness even within the context of the family, where people can feel isolated, you know, and it's important for us to find ways to really address those in positive ways, to have a positive mindset, to interpret, not to be so intimidated by one another that you feel it difficult to express yourself. Of course, you can't just express yourself to anybody. You have to develop a relationship with somebody before you feel comfortable enough to speak freely with them. Yeah. So Queen Mo, I can see you're reading something there. Are you getting
It's
some
Louis,
comments
he
down
makes me laugh here. You guys come in and join us. Louis is the only person in the comment section. Come on, join us in here. Please kindly come on in. I think I should actually be
Yeah.
sending invitations to all my friends. Because what happens is a lot of people don't get notifications on time when we're live. And I tried to actually show this notification earlier, but I think maybe what happened is that we lost the time and I had
Saturday.
to restart the show because we're supposed to have started earlier. But
Yeah.
because of everything that's going on, yeah, I think I need to actually just restart it. But anyway, Louis is saying, after talking about interviewing teenagers who are in high school that say that shoplifting is more fun, he was also saying the thing is that housewives live in a rich community where they have people that clean their homes and fill their fridge. Therefore, so the rich community is dysfunctional or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is the thing that we are focusing so much on wealth, material things, on gaining wealth that we forget that another wealth, another type of way to measure your wealth is your relationships, is the quality of the relationships that you have. That's also wealth. And it can also show a very high level of poverty amongst people who are financially rich, but relationship wise, very poor.
Poor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very poor
Mm.
to the point where they can't even enjoy their wealth, their financial wealth. Yeah, because
Uh,
they don't have anyone to relate with and enjoy it with, which is really sad, isn't it, Susan? So let me share a screen. Let me show you a video here. We're
mhm.
trying to keep awake over here, won't lie. So I think these videos are gonna help. Just watch this one. This one should wake you up. Let me see. Should show the full screen and start. Yeah.
Is starting to annoy me.
What is
Uh-uh.
starting to annoy them?
What is it? Where did he go now? He's disappeared. Ah, that wasn't what I was trying to show you, people. That was just failure. Now that is really annoying me now. Let me see if this one will work because hold on. Okay.
Are you showing the video?
That particular video is showing that you're 30 years old and you're trying to explain to your family why you're 30 and unmarried at Christmas time. Yeah. So that's a lady who's
Oh,
trying to explain. She's gone to her family gathering and everybody's saying, "Why are you unmarried? Why are you unmarried?" And she goes, they
uh,
did not, I'm trying to, she's stammering. She's stammering, she's at a loss for words. That's why it looks so ridiculous, by the way, guys. this is this is what I was trying to show you. So let me try and show you the other one, which was quite interesting. Uh, Me and my useless skills. I think Louis is a IT guy. He should be here helping us. Share screen. Where did you go? Okay, it even went away. I have to put it back up. The other guy was also talking about the kind of a similar issue that he was having. So let me see if I could get him again. So Susan, would you like to react to that while I find the other TikTok video, please?
when there's pressure from the family for you to get married, I think they
And
should
then you're
know.
there.
I mean,
They did not. Oh, oh.
yeah, I think that is a worldwide problem, or challenge. I think it happens in all communities where, when you reach a certain age and everybody wants you to be, to be married and to have children. Like in Africa, they will expect you to also have children. But I mean, the truth is that the world has changed so much, and people are getting married at any age now. I mean, as long as you reach adulthood, you can get married, even when you're, over 50 or even 60 years old. I've heard of people getting married when they're over 60 years old. So, and that can happen. That's the reality of our life today, because I mean, people don't want to. People look for companionship even as they
Mm-hmm,
age, and
mm-hmm,
so if they find companionship, they can get married. So you do have, that's why you do find people getting married. So when you're put to task and told you've reached a certain age and you should get married, there's always that pressure. And the truth of the matter is that people are getting married older and older, at least in Kenya, because the young people want
mm-hmm,
to, um, you know, go through their education, be working, and have purchased one or two things before um, they get married, or especially the males would be
mm-hmm,
thinking that way. The
mm-hmm,
women too also would like to have established their career, done some things, which they would like to do before they get married. Also, I think women are setting those type of targets too. So people are getting married generally when they're older, and for some
mm-hmm.
societies, it's very difficult for them to understand that change in dynamic. And I think as long as we keep our minds open to the fact that the things always change, our lives are dynamic. We can't, nothing really is set in stone. But then on the other hand, we have to make sure that whatever we are doing is within the ranges of not being extreme, you know. And when we come to talk about
That's true.
the politics, when we talk about the politics, I think this is one of the things that has brought a lot of have made some leaders unpopular, especially
Mm-hmm,
in the West. The
mm-hmm,
extreme, uh, you know, liberal. I was listening to Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about his description of Justin Trudeau was that he tells lies with every single breath, according to Jordan Peterson.
Oh God. I have to say that Trudeau is not my favorite person, really. He isn't.
And that
Yeah.
his resignation, his when he resigned from being the party leader or whatever, it was like it was rehearsed. It was like about himself. It was a very sort of staged thing, and it was not convincing. Jordan Peterson says in 9 years, before 9 years, before Trudeau took over, that Canada was equal to US in the I think the GDP or something per capita, and now it's at 60%. And he said that Trudeau got in trouble with his these are Jordan Peterson's words, nightmarish woke leftist politics. And people just had enough of everything was spiraling completely out of control. And also I think the same thing is something that has affected England as well. The extreme views that have really just made people shake their head a bit and say, no, we're losing the plot. Let's get back to some sense. Also in France, the vote of no confidence on the prime minister. And the last time that was in 1962. And again, I think it's about those extremist views that the policies and ideologies that the various governments have been trying to bring into place. In Kenya, when you talk about Jordan Peterson's description of Trudeau and his lies with every single breath, we also have that situation where the news reports, not my words, but the news reports complaints by Kenyans that our president also is not very truthful, that he doesn't tell the truth. And we have ways of fact checking his speeches, and a lot of his speeches have been, not a lot, all his speeches have been fact checked, and a lot of it has been found not to be will not pass the truth test. So it seems like we are being led by leaders who are not very upfront with their populace or their populations that they're leading, and as a result of that, they've ended up in problems.
Exactly. When you talk about Trudeau, let me just remind you. Do you remember what happened at the G20 summit? There's a time that he was talking behind. He was actually gossiping about the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, at the G20 summit, and he was told off very nicely. I don't know whether you guys remember that, and I remember that because I was like, wow, the guy is shameless, totally shameless. Yeah, Xi Jinping. Here. Let me show you that. Let me show you that. Let me see if it'll show up in the full screen. Yeah.
Into how diplomacy works or sometimes does not.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate.
Chinese President Xi Jinping, with his interpreter, cornered Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on the margins of the G20.
And that's not how the conversation was conducted.
To rebuke him for releasing details to the public about their meeting the day before, Trudeau pushed back.
Canada will believe in free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on.
Canada launched a new Indo-Pacific strategy that includes a tougher stance on China over human rights concerns.
Canada needs to be able to engage constructively and directly on areas we can work together, while at the same time we continue to be there to challenge on human rights.
But this was hardly the only challenge for the Canadian government on the G20's last day. Leaders woke up to news of Russia's latest attacks on Ukraine and a missile that struck Poland, killing 2 people. Trudeau was summoned to an emergency G7 and NATO meeting. He and the British Prime Minister also spoke to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and his foreign minister.
The reason Ukraine is having to use missiles is to defend its homeland.
Both leaders placed blame at Russia's feet.
This is in the context of massive illegal missile strikes by
Anyway, the point is, guys, you saw how Justin Trudeau was so rude to Xi Jinping, and here is on the relationships issue. Here's the other video which I was trying to play for you guys. Okay, let's listen to this one. Oh, oops! Come on, why does this video refuse to play? Mhm. Oh, it happened again! Oh my God! I don't know why I'm just not able to play this video. Oh. Finally got it. This thing of waking up and married is starting to annoy me. So you see, as for we were talking about that, Susan. Sorry about I brought 2 very different videos on there. One of them I was just trying to, bring a point home about Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
Always very inappropriate, a very inappropriate human being. That's all I can call him. Yeah, and if you're going to be told off by the Chinese prime minister, the Chinese president or prime minister, you're going to be, you really are something, because for them usually they don't. They keep their anger to themselves. So if he's going to get a beating, that's just basically it. As for this other one, this one is about relationships, and this is just a taste of what I've seen on TikTok. Everybody talking about, I am tired of being married. But on the other hand, like Louis is saying, social media is pushing the gray divorce trend, where divorces amongst older couples are typically over 50 years old. People who have been married for 27 years, gray, and they're being pushed to divorce. Actually, I think that social media is actually pushing the trend of, I can live alone. I don't need anybody. I am self-sufficient, me, and I can, okay, on one hand, I can understand that people should not tolerate abusive relationships, but on the other hand, I can also see some sort of deliberate attempt to, first of all, push the narrative of, I can live alone, I don't need anybody, and the second narrative of, children should not want to have children, don't have children, because if you have children, you're going to be helping the rich. Children are seen as a transactional thing. Yeah, that people with children should be kind of like kind of disrespected in a way. If you choose to have children, then you must be naive and not very intelligent, not very smart, not very educated, not career driven, not somebody who wants to have a wealth or who is ambitious, who wants to be wealthy. So if you are if you're interested in having babies, or if you're young and you're thinking about having children, you're going to be stressed out just listening to how women are being mistreated when they have babies, or how baby daddies are not responsible, and you imagine that it's every single baby daddy out there that's irresponsible. Or when you hear that if you have a child, then you put your career on hold forever, and he goes off with another woman, or he doesn't care for his children in the future and decides to up and leave and marry another man, and all kinds of things. So I think there's so much fear being put in the younger generation on marriage. It's really sad. And having kids, that there must be an agenda behind it. It just cannot be coincidental at all.
Yeah, it's quite disturbing, that fear. In fact, they say that Gen Zs are afraid of having children and their batteries on their phones going flat. I mean, there's a third reason, but the the battery of their phone going flat. So just like, I think there are even some memes on that. And it's unfortunate that the picture that they have about the family life and getting married and having children is such a negative picture. And the truth of the matter is there are many successful people we would call successful, who have managed their family life and they have children. I mean, they're married and they have children. But then again, we think about, there's also that group of people who get married later on because of, they don't want to age without a companionship, and they look forward to that, companionship with somebody, and they're able to do a lot of things together. Something that we see here, for instance, in Kenya, is that the couples that, go through the various stages, because I mean, marriage is tough. I mean, let nobody lie to you. Marriage is really, it's not an easy thing to accomplish. So those guys who have been married for, 40, 50, 60 years, I mean, just watching them, in their old age, you can see there's a great deal of companionship. It's like people get back and they're closer together, and it's something to be envied, I think, because they're not lonely. They have companionship. They're doing their things together. Maybe they're empty nesters. There are no children in the home. People have traveled with globalization. Children are working all over the world, or all over the country and stuff like that. So um I think it's important to continue to focus on those things which are important, and just pick them up and make sure that the young people are picking up the positive lessons rather than the negative lessons in things, because there's some good things that happen. Definitely, what we see more of and what we talk about more of are the bad things. I mean, I remember going to a media conference, and the issue was truth and the media, and they were saying that truth doesn't sell, So they have to,
It's not
and
sexy
pleasant things,
subject, the truth.
yeah,
We're in
and
the
pleasant
post-truth
stories
era.
don't sell. Yeah, so they want to tell you about all these tragic things that are happening everywhere. And when you look at the news, I mean, for instance, looking at the news, I was just looking at it yesterday, and there was this story where and I think I talked about, not yesterday, the other day, Wednesday, this lady locked her 2 children inside the house and set it on fire and took off. And she's at large. Something like that. That is news. I mean, that is the type of news we're seeing, Also, more recently, a boyfriend, an intimate partner, did the same thing to his girlfriend recently. So I sometimes wonder, to what extent does what we see on TV, what we see on the social media, to what extent does it impact our bad behavior or the way we view things? Is this controlling what the young people think about marriage? Is it controlling what young people think about in relationship?
True. I think definitely what you hear and what you do or how you feel is definitely all related. Definitely behavior is behavior is affected. I was just looking at some for example, if you go online, and if you're a big consumer of social media, and you see so much negativity around the subject of relationships, intimate relationships, marriage, all that, most likely they're trying to form a certain pattern of thinking in your mind, and if you're not careful, they'll be successful. And you'll start to project views that are not even your own, and you'll wonder where they came from eventually, and you'll be a diehard believer in those views because you've been hearing them so much. You see people talking about loneliness when they migrate to other countries. Like if you just go into TikTok right now, and you just, go in and you look for things to do with loneliness, you'll see people talking about, I'm lonely because I migrated to another country and I cannot integrate and I don't know anyone and I'm all alone and I'm spending so much time alone and I'm lonely. Okay, the other person is saying, I'm lonely because of my age, I'm too old. People look at me and I'm no longer attractive, and therefore they skip me and they think I'm not good enough for them. So, I'm not going to be looked at. So because of my age. Okay. And when you see this person who's talking about being lonely because of their age, they're a very attractive looking person. Yeah. But they believe, they actually internalize that belief that they're not good looking, that because they're older, because they're now saggy, because they're no longer, as firm as they used to be, that there'll be nobody who will like them. And that is something that I blame, the media and Hollywood and everybody else out there for projecting, that love and relationship only belong to a certain category of people. Like it's a private
Yeah.
membership. It's like a private members club. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to pay a fee, and the fee has to be paid in youth currency. Youth currency, yeah, and shape currency, and color currency, race currency, educational achievement currency. What else? Economic status currency. And it's not true, because actually love does not discriminate, or love is not just for, or relationships are not just for one type of people. It doesn't happen that way.
That's
And
true.
another thing I've also
Mm.
noticed, is another trend I've also seen, that a lot of the people who are complaining about being in abusive relationships are people who are actually, like Louis is saying over here, the rich, let's not say rich, upper middle class to wealthy, people who are very comfortable financially. They are the ones who are most on social media complaining about having being in toxic marriages or toxic situations. This happens a lot, where you find people who have high net worth, though high value people, high net worth individuals. They seem to be the most dysfunctional and the most dissatisfied with their relationships. And I think it's because they think that they can move on quickly and replace that person with another person quick, because they have the financial standing. And then they discover that actually that's not true. A soul is a soul. And I've noticed this, that high net worth individuals having more money just puts you at higher risk for dissatisfaction with your relationship. That's the Queen Mo survey. Okay, based on my review of TikTok videos.
Based on your review.
Yeah,
but I
that
think
was the results of my tweet, of my survey, guys. That's it. People with high net worth, people with a lot of makeup, people who look like they're driving nice cars, people who look like they're dressed very nicely, they speak very good English. They're very, they seem to be high net worth. They're probably using an iPhone. Yeah. All those guys who are complaining about their relationship, they seem to be the most unhappy in their relationship. They need to ask themselves why. And that's just the results. And anyone who has anything to add to that, or anybody who disagrees, needs to come with evidence from TikTok.
you're talking about the context of TikTok. That the Queen Mo survey was done in the context of TikTok, between which date and which date?
Between
Yeah,
Wednesday and today.
Well, I think if it's been spoken about in the social media,
My
it
sample
is
size is random videos, approximately 20 of them, with people who look like, who appear to be net worth high. I don't know whether it's because of their makeup or their wigs, but the fact is that they seem to be high net worth, what they call high value males, high value females. Those ones, yeah, they seem to be the saddest in relationships right now. Okay, this is my conspiracy theory, and anyone who wants to give an alternative view is welcome to challenge it or accept it and explain why. Why do you think that could possibly be the reason why? Why do you think, what is pushing this trend? Is it expectations that are not being met, or is it boredom? People are bored, or is it because people are not at that level, are not trained to know how to satisfy their partners apart from just physical intimacy? Or what do you think it is, guys? What is it? Maybe these people can't cook. I don't know. Maybe they're used to eating out and ordering food. I don't know. Maybe these people they believe in spending more time on their career and on their job. and socializing with their friends and spending a lot of time on social media rather than actually engaging with their partners. I don't know. You explain to me
Well,
why.
well, I think for one, the group, maybe we can just distinguish it. I think for me, I'd like to distinguish it. Those are the people who have access to the social media, who you're seeing just talking freely. There could be many others of different social class who are experiencing the same thing, but they're perhaps not speaking so freely about it on on social media or in such spaces. Because my own engagement, as in my career, is that it is classless. Abuse, domestic abuse, gender-based violence, and that type of abuse, whether it's economic abuse, whether it is physical abuse, whether it's sexual abuse or emotional abuse, it is classless. It cuts across all classes. As you know, the patterns of behavior are very common. They can, you can distinguish, you can identify patterns of behavior by people who are abusers, and it doesn't matter which nation or which people you're talking about. It's just a pattern that you can see. It's a worldwide problem, and I think there are many people. Depending on the social class or your culture, you'll be less inclined to speak about some of these things. You know, and the survey, like the Kenya Demographic Health Survey, the last one that was done here, showed that there's a correlation between violence, domestic physical violence, and marriage. So they were showing the higher indicators of it happening. So I think, for me, I think it's the group of people who have access to social media, also the people who are willing to speak, about the challenge. A certain group of people, but I think it's a problem that you find everywhere in the world. That people are being abused, and that is happening within the context of a marriage, intimate partner relationships, and whatever else. And when you're talking about relationships, at least within the higher income earners, and perhaps the way they view their relationship, we have to think about, when you're talking about that relationship, what is the basis of it? If it's a very transactional thing, then it will be based on money, or what I can do for you and what you can give me back, as opposed to a genuine relationship. I know some people make friends. Their friends go all the way back to nursery school. Nursery school, how old were we in nursery school? Is it 3 years old? And they're still your friends when you're 60 years old. You made those friends when you were 3 years old, say, and they're still your friends when you're 60. And you've gone through these various parts of life. They're exposed to different systems, maybe you even went to different countries and met again, but you kept in touch. So you're able to keep those relationships. And I remember being asked by somebody, I introduced, I actually, what happened in that conversation is that there was a young lady, and I said, you look like a friend of mine. We were, I met her when I was in primary school, and that means I was about 12 years old. And the time I was telling her that, I was many, many, many years old. And she asked me an interesting question. She said, what? I said, yeah, we were friends when, I was 12 years old, and she's still my friend today. And she said, how do you do that? She was a Gen Z. How do you maintain those relationships? So I think there's something that has changed in the way we relate to one another, that has affected the way that we are able to maintain relationships and to deal with issues of loneliness. I think that is what has happened, because it looks like the younger people are not able to establish these long-lasting relationships that are decades long. Somebody knew you were young and you're really like a senior citizen, and they're still your friend. they're not able to establish that. And we need to find out what is happening in society that is creating that.
I think I've kind of identified that. Thank you very much for that, Susan. But I think I've kind of realized that my survey needs to be cross-checked or better understood, or maybe I need to go back and redo my sampling size or strategy, because it looks like, actually, according to what they say, research, quote unquote research out there, they say that higher earning couples are more satisfied in relationships because they have more flexibility and can have more income at their disposal. But maybe the reason why is because on TikTok, women seem to be very vocal about their dissatisfaction, and they're the ones who file for divorce first anyway. When it comes to divorce, I'm talking about divorce and dissatisfaction, and they're the ones on TikTok talking more. And most of the women that I see there are high income earners, or at least moderately high income earners. They seem to be that if they were in their relationships, these are women who are also earning incomes just like alongside their partners. And many of them are expressing dissatisfaction with their relationships. And one of the reasons is, and according to the surveys that are out there, is that most couples, they say, are less satisfied when the woman earns more, in a relationship. So this could be just a condition of the relationship, that maybe there's gender equality. The gender equality issue could be one of the reasons why men feel stressed in relationships, because of the balance of power. They feel out-earned. Many husbands who feel out-earned by their partners, they say that they suffer from psychological distress. Can you believe? Yeah. So they say that the traditional gender identity norms, when they're challenged, it affects the male, and that can impact on the quality of relationship that the woman eventually has with this male. With her husband. So if you are a woman, let's say, for example, when it looks like, let's look at migrants, for example. A lot of women who migrate abroad, let's say men and women, they migrate abroad. A lot of women will end up in jobs in the healthcare sector. I can talk about it like in the UK. Many women will be earning income as nurses or as CNAs, as in the nursing field. And the men might be working in areas of security. I'm talking about like lower level. These are not the high earning people. These are just in general what happens in terms of the balance of power shift. So the woman ends up getting a lot of work, a lot of shifts. She earns more. She ends up out earning her husband. Eventually, you'll find that a lot of women will start to actually feel a little sense of, what do we say? A lot of women will start to feel a little less respect for their husbands if they out earn them anyway, or they feel that maybe their husbands are not pulling up their bootstraps. They're not carrying their weight adequately. So you'll find that, some women, or say maybe some wives might feel like, oh, you know what? In my country where I used to come from, you were earning more than me and you were stepping on my neck, literally. You had your knee on my neck back in my country. But here, I'm out earning you. I'm earning more than you are, And so you'll find that some men might decide to become more controlling, or they might suffer that psychological distress. Women might also feel that men are not contributing or carrying their weight, and they start to feel upset about the fact that they have to pay bills. So that creates a balance of a shift, and it's happening a lot more than we really realize. And you find that a lot of women will go and file for divorce or separation because they find that they don't actually need their partner. One of the reasons why partners stay together is because they see a need for each other. If you don't need each other, then what's the point of staying together? And these are the balance of power issues that go on in relationships. So maybe the problem with me has been my sample size or my sampling framework. I think it has been wrong. So actually compatibility, money disagreements, they can start. Women start keeping secrets about how much money they're earning to protect the image of their husband, or they start making purchases without asking their husband, or they start sharing money with their families back home without telling their husband. Or they talk about the finances and keep talking about it, and women start to feel aggrieved. they're not able to set financial goals together because anyway you're not even on the same page. And then, the other issue that can also affect is things to do with, like Susan was talking about before, substance abuse, smoking, drinking, secretive behavior of people who drink and smoke. That can affect their behavior, can affect their moods. It can affect because they can become negligent of their responsibilities and abandon their responsibilities. Yeah. They can also, it can also affect their general health and things to do with hygiene and appetite and things like that. So that's another one. Substance abuse. People, who are drinking too much. And a lot of people who are high income earners also tend to indulge in a lot of substance abuse, actually. Yeah. And of course, then there's domestic abuse, like we were talking about before, where it can also be a cause of separation and divorce and conflicts over responsibilities, etc. So these are the reasons. Yeah, these are the very many reasons. People are not as committed as they should be in a relationship. They feel like, because we're in the culture of disposable things. Even relationships can be disposable. Anyway, I can find somebody just like you. Forgetting that everybody is an individual and a unique individual, and you cannot replicate another person. You cannot replicate anybody. Everybody is individual, comes with their pluses and minuses. Everybody, even the most
Yeah.
beautiful person on the planet Earth, has got some major flaws. It's just the way it is. It's just what it is. Even if it's not on them, it could be on something that's next. I mean, even if it's not in them directly, it could be in their circle, in their family. It could be something that's carried in their family that will affect you in your relationship. So the issue is, what can you actually tolerate? What's your level?
Yeah,
What's your threshold? Uh-huh.
I was just going to add, when you talk about the economic factors, because it seems like the power balance is driven mostly by economics, by the economy, and who has the money and who's controlling the money and who's controlling the property, and how much time is spent in whatever making that money. How much time do you spend in whatever? So I think it's also the other way round for women. Women who are economically independent, who are earning, say they're earning more than their spouses or intimate partners, and also a situation where women are not earning more than their partners, where they're dependent. Let's say, yeah, they're dependent on a wealthy spouse. Okay, so again, that situation, depending on how that person treats, whether they weaponize the fact that they have economic superiority, will determine whether or not how that relationship goes, because it can also cause the woman to seek that divorce, to want to get divorced or separated from their spouse, because it can be used to abuse and make their life completely unbearable, and to control what they do, when they do it, how they do it, to dictate what happens, where the children go to school, where they buy property, whether you can interact with your friends or not, to control your interactions. And in fact, I remember watching a video, and this lady, she was shrouded, she could not show her face, and she was talking about the plight of Kenyan women who are married to very rich men, and she was saying it is a terrible life. And she was covered. She said she doesn't she was completely covered. And she said it's a terrible life. We are controlled. We are completely not able to, our lives. Our lives are not our own. So, so when you talk about the power relationship in this context, it seems to be really on the economy, on money, and who controls the money. And so for women, it is both. When they are the higher earners, they could leave the relationship, and also when they are not, because of the abuse they're facing. And then the other question I'd have is that, is it really that easy to walk out of a relationship? I remember when I was in law school many years ago, we were looking at different jurisdictions who have time limits as to when a divorce petition can be filed. And I think Scotland at that time had no time limit. But in some countries, they say you have to be married for 3 years before you can file for a divorce petition. And in only certain situations can you file for a petition before then, and you have to petition the court to be allowed to file your petition before then. And so they were comparing the stats of Scotland, say, and which didn't have a time limit, and other countries which did, and they said, well, it doesn't really affect, it doesn't change. The divorce rate in Scotland was actually lower than it was in other countries which had the time limit. So what really will people really easily, even if you have the economy, even if you have the money that can enable you to live independently of your spouse, will it really cause you to separate? That's just the question I'm asking, because I think there are deeper reasons as to why. Yeah, I can see you want to
I
say
think so.
something.
Yeah, I want to jump in on there and say, yeah, it's true. Financial challenges do affect, because, like, for example, I'm looking at my thumbnail, the one that I put up for this particular show today. Yeah. And what we're
Yeah.
talking about right now is it looks a little bit off away from the thumbnail. Hi, Fia. Welcome to the show, my dear. Yeah. It looks like sometimes, we don't get, this show of mine does not give notifications to people. So I have to do that manual, which is really sad. I had to do that to Fia. Fia, welcome. We're talking about relationships today, by the way, because we had a very, very late start. And, we talked about, first of all, the vote of no confidence, like the way, Macron, Trudeau. We talked a little bit about Trudeau. And, we didn't talk about Macron. We talked about him last time. Right now, we know in the UK, we have Starmer. Keir Starmer is facing his own issues over there. In Kenya, we've been voting no confidence, but it's been meaningless, literally, And then, but we're talking about how the economy is impacting on relationships, and how relationships also, between people of different economic status is how successful or not successful they are. So we're talking about the fact that, like, now for example, there's so many things, by the way, that have been going on in our planet. We had, for example, it was Jupiter, by the way. It was Jupiter that was showing, that star that was showing next to the moon I was talking about in the last video is actually Jupiter. And we were told that the planets are going to be realigning this month, right? And that was one of the major issues. And this one, I'm talking about the global challenges. We talked about the fires. We talked about everything. And all these things affect relationships. They're affecting our relationships, because what's happening is that we also know that social media seems to be promoting a narrative, several narratives. And some of these narratives are, the first one that is going to affect relationships the most is this issue of the world is becoming unstable and unpredictable. Even the stars are realigning. Yeah. Now we have strange things in the atmosphere. Now we have companies that are closing. We have companies that are closing. We have votes of no confidence in countries. We have mortgages that are unaffordable. We have, the mortgage rates are unaffordable. The bank lending rate, the UK bank's lending rate is the highest in the world at 5%, which is like a joke for Kenyans, because for Kenyans, I think it's like a 10% plus, who knows, So what we're saying is that when you create this alarmist kind of narrative, of course, nobody is in the mood, to, first of all, procreate and have kids. So done with children. And nobody is even in a good place to have a relationship, because everybody gets affected mentally by this instability, this unstable atmosphere. Yeah. So, yeah, Fia, we're saying, yeah, the world is changing. Yeah, you're an hour behind. No problem, Fia. You haven't missed that much. You'll catch up. Yeah, but the world is changing a lot. Like you, Fia was shared with me a video where she, with the climate wise, where she was driving down some, the country lanes that are full of snow. Yeah, in the UK, and this all these things, they cause stresses in the family, they cause stresses to the budget, they cause stresses then to your relationships. The question is then, does that mean that we abandon relationships altogether, because that's only going to enhance increase our isolation? Or do we just decide then we just live with the external factors and in fact seek each other even more, so that we have someone to go through these challenges with? Yeah. But it looks to me like many people haven't got the skills for having healthy relationships. What do you think about
Yeah,
that? Louis
yeah,
saying, my
that's
circle of friends are 30 and older and are not homeowners. Just imagine.
yeah,
So imagine Louis is talking about being a homeowner, the issue of home ownership. Do you know that is one of the things that make people secure enough to feel that they can then attract a person into their life and maybe become a provider and even have kids? But if you can't even afford a home, can't afford a mortgage, in fact, the contracts are so short, the job contracts are so short that you cannot even project, you cannot plan on buying a home based on a job that is a contract of 2 years or 3 years or even one.
mm,
Those jobs for life are gone. So, where are we going with this, guys? We're talking about relationships, global challenges, what is happening. And this is the second part because we talked about the first part last time. This time we're covering the things that we didn't cover last time, which is somebody saying, as much as people don't want to be in relationships, on the other hand, they're tired of being alone.
yeah,
At other times, they have to explain why they're even alone when they go to the family gatherings in December at Christmas. Why are you single?
yeah,
Because it went like this. Yeah.
yeah.
Where are we
Just
going,
I was
guys?
looking.
We're just messed up. It's a mess.
I was looking at Piers raised the issue of, and I think Louis too, about the climate, and you're talking about the various climate, and the Europe's climate monitor says that 2024 was the hottest year on record, and the average global temperature rose by 1.6 degrees Celsius. So it was higher than above pre-industrial levels, and this is higher than the 1.5 degree limit that has been set by the UN 2015 Paris Climate Accord. So they're saying 2024 actually was the hottest year. And so when we see some of the catastrophes that we're talking about, which have affected the economies in many nations, especially affected the economies in many nations, and which again affects relationships, because we can see there's a direct correlation between relationships and economy, and people's earning power. So that has been the case in the past year. Something else I wanted to comment on. I'm trying to remember what it was you just talked about.
Okay. You remember. But basically,
Yeah,
why is it that which world are they talking about? Because sometimes when people talk about the world, they're talking about America and Europe. They forget Africa and they forget other places in the world. Okay, I'm sure maybe those kinds of studies, especially if it's research, it should consider the general world. What are they talking about? Last year, that's when we had floods in Kenya. That is when we had a coldest season in July. June, July was freezing. I
yeah,
remember that we were flooded and
yeah.
it was freezing cold. What are they talking about? It was warm. Well, I can
It's
talk
also
about
very
drought.
hot.
No, it was what? It was hot.
There were
It,
When it was hot, it was
when
extremely
it was
hot. I
very
think
hot in December, yes, it was
it
hot,
was
but
very
it
hot.
was
Yeah, it
hot,
was
yes. But when it
very
was
hot.
cold,
Yeah,
it was also very cold, and it was
yeah,
cold for a long
yeah,
time last year. I felt cold a
yes.
lot of the year, so I don't know, maybe Kenya is not included in that. I don't know. And in the UK, I don't believe that the UK was warm last year. Was it, Fia? Was it warm in the UK last year overall?
There were no heat waves.
Oh,
I think there were
Fia
heat
is saying the
waves.
weather was warm and wet. We had lots of
Yeah.
rain and floods. Oh, okay, so yes, so maybe in Europe it was warm and wet and lots of floods. But the thing is that now, guys, are we going to determine our decision to fall in love, have a family based on the fact that it's cold, it's 1 degree hotter this year, or because the Bank of England has set its mortgage rates at 5%, which is the highest in 30 years? What is going to determine? I think, you know what? I think, humanity, we need to align ourselves. We're still human. We forget that we are human and we need to interact and we need other people, period. That's just it. Yeah. In the British language, they say full stop. If I say period, they'll be thinking of something totally different, Yeah. So, I mean, we can't. I don't think that it means that there's no poor person who would ever get married and have a happy and stable relationship. It's as if the poor people don't need to have. And these are the things that I had problems with, like in the UK. When you think about the visa policies, the UK is actually losing a lot of international students. Why? Because of the new visa policies that deny them the opportunity to come with their families, their children. So now people have to determine whether they're going to travel or not, because it means that there's a sort of assumption that people don't need. Oh, Susan dropped off. Yeah, there's a sort of assumption that people don't need their families, they don't need their children, they don't need to come with their families when they migrate. But that is actually wrong in my view. What do you think, Fia, about that, or Louis? Yeah, the visa and the immigration policies around the world are family unfriendly. Office policies and the domestic policies in terms of like work policies are also unfriendly towards families. You find that somebody has been given a job across the country, but they're not moving the entire family. It's only that person. Yeah. So, and they don't help you to look for accommodation and they give you a short contract. I don't know. I don't know where we're going with all of this. Really, I don't. Yeah. All I can say is that I think that we need to look at our relationships almost independently of the global challenges. Yeah. Because what is constant is that we still need our relationships. We still need to relate. We still find purpose in family. We still find purpose in either building a life and also being supported by another life. And not just any life. We're talking about the life that we invest in. Yeah. The life that we invest in, which is our family life. Yeah, so we'll always, find purpose in that. I'm hoping that you guys are going to come on board. Come on board, thumbs up this video. Let's chat about this topic. I know it's very, very late. It is a Friday, and this is only for the insomniacs who are amongst us. Today, we're talking relationships. It's a painful subject. It's not something that's easy to talk about, but it should be talked about anyway, because it is the one factor that determines, our quality of life. Because as you know, they say that married men actually live longer or have a more satisfactory life compared to married women. That men enjoy marriage more than women. Yeah. And it looks like we lost Susan completely, which is unbelievable, really, guys. This is crazy. Let's see where Susan dropped off to. Susan, where are you? Come back. We miss you here. I need to hear Susan's perspective on this. Ophia is saying, right now we are facing leadership issues. True. People are disgruntled. People are disgruntled. Immigrants are really battling with high costs and family back home making demands. Oh my God. Fia, you just opened a can of worms, Let's talk about the immigrants, because many of us Africans, for example, I am African Queen Mo in Cardiff. Cardiff is a city in Wales, okay, the capital of Wales, okay? So, as an immigrant to the UK, currently living in Kenya, I do understand what you're talking about. Yes, we're facing a leadership crisis. We are facing a leadership crisis back in our home countries as well as in our host countries. Okay? People are disgruntled, yes, and people are telling lies as well. People are trying to encourage other people to migrate based on their own experiences and not based on the reality on the ground. Yes, people are disgruntled also because the promises or the expectations that they had when they traveled to these host countries or these immigrant countries are not being met. So, for example, many people paid a lot of money to people, middlemen and middlewomen, to companies to travel. Many people sold their homes. They borrowed money to travel, to go maybe to the UK, to the USA to work. When they got there, they found that those jobs are either non-existent or the terms and conditions are not going to help them to pay back their loans and their debts. Okay? Many people actually lost their jobs. They quit their jobs at home and migrated based on a promise which is actually not being fulfilled. Another point that FIA brings up is migrants are battling with high costs and family back home making demands. It's true. Cost of living is increasing in the host countries. At the same time, cost of living is increasing in home countries. At the same time, families are making demands back home because even cost of living is increasing back in countries. So, for example, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, maybe even countries like Mexico. Cost of living is going up for the migrant families. And so the expectations is that more money should be coming in. But the trouble is that a lot of jobs are also being lost because like Louis can attest to, many companies are downsizing and many jobs are actually being lost, both in the host country and in the migrant country. All of these impact on family relationships. And like Fia says, people are disgruntled. Being disgruntled is a very horrible thing. It's not a good attitude to have to your spouse, that you're hanging around going, so and so is asking me for money at home. I'm not getting enough hours in my shift. Oh, the cost of living has gone up. Fia was telling me that the cost of groceries has gone up a lot in the UK. I know that the cost of energy has gone up in the UK and it continues to rise. I know mortgage prices are going up in the UK. Same thing in Kenya. Taxes. We are being taxed left and right here in Kenya. Not allowed to breathe. Yeah. School fees going up. Everything going up. But don't you think then that also creates an opportunity for one to partner with someone and de-stress? Or do you think that this creates a situation where people don't want to have responsibility for anybody else? Susan, I think you've had a long holiday. You can say something now.
Sorry, I just couldn't connect. I was thrown out and then I couldn't connect. Yeah, definitely here taxes are a problem, and also Canada. Their taxes are really high, and that's one of the reasons why Trudeau has ended up in problems. So the tax issue is high, and it's reducing what we call disposable income. So people don't really have money to spend, and they just have money just to meet the basics, which may not even be enough a lot of the time. And whether or not people would get into partnerships for that reason alone, I think it's not in today's age. You may find people doing that, especially if they're living maybe away from their home country, but in their home country, it might be a more complex thing because you have the other support system of your family, your extended family who are there to support you. But maybe when you're in a different country away from your home country, you find people getting into those type of relationships. Although I understand, for instance, in the US, I'm not sure, but I was just having a discussion with a friend, and she was saying that there's more support for the systems in the US support people being separated rather than being together. So I think there's more family support for people who are living separately rather than together. And of course,
that's the same in the UK too. The benefit system, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're right,
yeah.
Susan.
So I think
and Louis
something
is saying, Yeah, sorry. Louis is saying that similar to what, okay, on the leadership crisis and on, the migration issue, similar to what India, South Korea, China, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, etc., college students borrow money where they promise on internship and end up working in dangerous environments. Absolutely. So the
Yeah,
problem is universal. Yes, this is a universal problem. And why is it that the universities and the colleges and the immigration system doesn't seem to care? Why? Because, like, for example, in this country of Kenya, we know that the US Embassy, I remember the ambassador, the reason why one of the reasons that the ambassador actually had to resign is because there's
the
so many
former one.
people applying for visas in
Yeah,
Kenya and spending a lot of money on applications and being denied visa to go, and also
yeah,
being denied, not getting a refund, being asked to apply again and not getting a refund. So let's say you spend like $200 applying for your visa, $100 to $200 applying for your visa. And meanwhile, the embassy has actually capped the number of people already, but they don't actually inform the applicants that the number has been capped and we have reached our maximum. They just continue to accept new applications. What happens then is these people do not get the visa, even if they probably are qualified, they don't get the visa and they don't get their money. But then what the ambassador explained once was that actually they depend on the money to keep the embassies running and to keep those visa offices running. They depend on the visa money. So it's so unfair. People are being stripped, right and left. And so
yeah,
these people, like in Eastern Asia, in Asia, they're borrowing money, promises to, work back and send the money back to their relatives. So what it's doing, it's actually impoverishing people and creating strains in relationships. I've seen couples on YouTube really strained, trying to get work to repay back to their families and totally unable to do it because of unscrupulous, jobs, should I say, and some middlemen. Yeah. But we're going to be winding up now, guys. We know that the problem is universal. We know that the finances
yeah.
also impact on relationships. But I think that it goes deeper than that, that there's an agenda to actually, I don't know what the agenda is. The agenda is kind of seems to be anti-relationships, anti-marriage, anti-children. And just imagine if you're a child now who is listening to people bragging about being child-free. Child-free is the way to go. What does that mean? Is that child-bound? We talked about that before, but it's still relevant now, that we should be careful not to jump onto these trends just blindly. Anti-family. Thank
Yeah,
you, Louis. Yes.
yeah,
The visa fees are very
yeah.
excessive, Fia. Extremely excessive and unfair. And it would be nice, if our countries could, develop so that maybe we will have more marriages. It's a long time since I was invited to a wedding. A lot of funerals, a lot of funeral arrangements, but very few weddings. I don't know whether it's a matter of age or whether it's a matter of the economy, but a lot of young people are losing their lives, and you get invited to a lot of funerals or you hear about people, losing their lives. And it's really unfortunate because these are the global challenges and what's happening. What's happening is that
But
we have a leadership crisis. And
yeah,
with a
our
leadership
young people
crisis, then
looking.
Mhm.
Sorry, I was just going to say our
It's
young
okay.
people here, at least in Kenya, are looking for jobs everywhere. There's high unemployment, and definitely, I mean, to some degree, they perhaps understand the relationship can only thrive if you have the economic wherewithal to withstand, to maintain it. And so they're looking for jobs, and we've had this. We are actually exporting labor in different areas to different countries, certain
Okay.
countries, and we're finding that. In fact, I was just looking at a report in the newspaper, and even on the news, the reports where they were saying, there's some sort of like slavery because they're going to some nations where, especially the Arab countries, and they're going there and there's some form of slavery because, they're not paid well, they're not treated well. We've had people coming back, in coffins and others coming back with severe injuries. You know, they're physically abused. Like in some the areas where there's the war, the owners of their employers have fled and left them there to face, you know, the war. Areas like Lebanon and all that, and they're being now repatriated back to you know, to Kenya. So when we're talking about, you know, how it's affecting relationship, you find that maybe it's easier for people who are not employed or don't have an income to be single as opposed to be in a relationship, because they really don't feel they can continue to, they can maintain it. So there is a connection between, you know, the economy and relationships and whether or not they can thrive. Yeah.
True.
And I think also maybe we need to encourage people to, you know, what is out there on the social media. We need to share news that is good news, not just bad news. The success stories, you know, to encourage people to view things better. And
talking about success stories, Susan, I've seen many people say, many people who are sharing miserable stories about relationships are saying, but why aren't the people who are happily married telling us about their happily married situations? And many people who are happily married are saying, well, because we know that you are all there evil-eyed, and, you know, we don't want to expose. We know that the evil eye is waiting to hear about them, so that they can destroy our relationship. So we're not going to tell you about our happily married relationships, or happy relationships with our partners, because of that evil eye, jealousy, the belief that people will actually jinx their relationships, so they don't want to expose. And Louis is saying over here that when he was a kid, he says, when I was a kid, I used to think it was weird for my cousin to be single at 30. But look at me now. Yeah, Louis, you know what? I used to think so too. I used to actually be the biggest judge, you know, especially, I would never be a single mother. How? Me, you know, single mother, no way, you know. And when you look at somebody who's over the age of 30, you just decide, oh, that's a spinster. We even had a word for them. Spinster. What did we used to call men? We used to think that men were irresponsible if they were single over the age of 32 or 33. But for women, if you get a woman who's like 30 years old, that's a spinster. That's supposedly supposed to be a spinster. It was really sad. It looks like Susan is having a really hard time, you know, getting on, and she seems to be breaking off from our live stream. So what I'm going to do here, Fia is teasing Louis right now. Louis, are you looking for a wife? Can you please answer that, Louis, before we go on? Because that's a very important question. Are you looking for a wife, Louis? And what are your specs? I think we have somebody who might actually decide to help you there. Let me add that. What are the specs, you know? Let me send this link to Susan again over here, because I need Susan so that she can help me close the show. Yeah. Yeah, so without getting personal, Louis, are you looking for a wife or not? Yeah, and the thing is that if you're single and you're looking for a wife, then all I can say is that you will find her, because what you look for, you will find. I really am one of those believers that if you're single and a male or woman and you're looking for a partner, you will find them. If you're really looking, you will find them. You know, you will. Because I really believe in, I don't know why I believe, I'm very spiritual. I really believe that what you think is manifested. Yeah. And if you think negative all the time, you'll also attract the negative. Yeah. Let me send Susan the link, because this link, I think it changed. So here is the link to the show. Yeah, it's sad. The internet can be a pain. Link to the show. So guys, yeah, sorry about that interruption over there. We have a little bit of a technical hitch here. Technical hitches are a pain. Yes, we can. What is he saying this time over here? New comment. Fear. What was Louis saying? Are you looking for a wife? Louis says, not at this time. And Fia says, let's help him. Not at this time. No. Louis is not available. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, Louis, the handsome Louis there. He's not available. Not at this time. You know, he's trying to think whether this economy is going to be one where, you know, he can actually sustain himself and a wife, you know. So this is not the time he's looking for a wife here. Pray for Louis. He's looking for a job. Actually, you know, he lost his contract and he's looking for a job. We were all praying and we have our fingers crossed for him. Yeah, because once he gets a job, then he'll get a wife, so that it doesn't matter whether he keeps his job or not. His wife can also take over and help. Yeah, but let me tell you, you know, when it comes to this, the global challenges that we're in, I don't think that even our parents would have foreseen that we're going to go through this kinds of trauma. Otherwise, I think they would have prepared us better for this. At this time, I think most of us are not doing as well as most of our parents. Yes, even those who we consider to be poor, even those people who think that they have poor parents, if you think about it, like in Africa, if you think your parents were poor, think about the fact that many of your parents had land. Many of your parents were not paying rent because they had built their own houses. Many of your parents probably had livestock, probably had vegetable gardens and patches. So they were not 100% reliant on commercial establishments to get their food. Many people could sell their livestock and go and pay school fees for their children. Many parents were able to educate entire groups, big families, 6 children. So you thought they were poor. That's the definition, the modern definition of poor. We need to reevaluate what that is. The real poverty is urban poverty now, where you're stuck in an apartment, where you have to, the only place that you consider for your food source is the grocery store, or you're stuck in a house or apartment, and the only place you can buy food is a grocery store. Otherwise, you starve to death. Yeah. And where, for example, you cannot have your livestock, you cannot have your food, you have to rely on electricity supply where you have to pay and all that. So I'm preaching to the choir. This is basically, everybody knows this. But the fact is that, yeah, we are living in very difficult times, and we still need each other. I think that this is the time when we actually need each other more, but we need people who are not just materialistically inclined, people who can see, people who are more spiritually inclined is what we need. We need to find soulmate, real true soulmates. Yeah. And if you have one already, you need to maintain, because there's no guarantee that you continue having your partner with you if you don't actually put in the effort for that person. Yeah. Okay, talking about soulmates, I'm now getting a call from mine, and I need to wind off and go and say goodbye to you guys. Yeah, I need to say goodbye to you guys. It's been quite late. Thank you so much for hanging out with Susan and I. Susan, wherever you are, good night. Let's meet up maybe later this weekend. I'll try to see if I can put in another show this weekend, because we really also wanted to talk about the political side of things and we didn't. I'd like to talk about politics at some point. If I get a chance this weekend, we will come on board and we'll let you know, guys. Thank you very much, Louis and Fia, for being with us. Thank you for sticking with us late, and have a good night. From Susan and I, who is not here right now, it's to-dos. Goodbye from African Queen Mo, and have a wonderful weekend. Look for that partner, or be partner ready. Get yourself ready for your partner, because they will be coming. And if you already have a partner, maintain your relationship, you know, put in some fire, let it blow, let it encourage you, let it bless you, let it be uplifting for you. Okay? Cheers, to-dos, bye-bye. Thank you, Fia, thank you, Louis, and everybody else who's going to watch the show later. Bye-bye. Cheers. Remember to thumbs up the video. Thank you.